Welcome back. We will now look at surveys and censuses. These are other very important aspects of statistical method study, and surveys and censuses are ways of describing how data is collected. So a survey is a study that is conducted on a sample, okay? And a census is a study that is conducted on the entire population. So under surveys, when you are performing a survey, you collect information from members of the sample that you have selected from the population. But when you are conducting a census, information or data is collected from the entire population. The word census may ring a bell because in Ghana, every 10 years, the nation conducts a population census. And the word is census because it is targeted at every member of the population. Nobody's left out. So census takes data or information from every single member of the population. And all members of the population are included in the study. However, for a survey, the sample that you select from your population is your focus. So you take information from every member of your sample, and they are the people that you focus on in your study. In this table, we see some notes are made to give a distinction between census and survey. So for census, as I had mentioned earlier, everyone in the population is asked questions. However, when it comes to census, it can be expensive compared to survey because for census, you are considering the entire population. So if you have to travel to meet, if you are doing a study of all citizens of Ghana, it means you have to travel the length and breadth of the nation. You travel to the north, to the east, to the south, everywhere. But if you are conducting a survey and your sample is just people in Greater Accra, then you will cut all that transportation costs to be cut down. So generally, conducting a census is more expensive than conducting a survey. It takes time also to conduct a census because your target group is large, it's huge as compared to a survey, because a survey, you are focusing on a group that is a portion of the entire population. So it's faster to conduct a sample survey as compared to a population census. The number of questions to be asked in a census, you may not have the opportunity to ask many questions when you are conducting a census. However, with a survey, because you are working with a limited number of people, you have an opportunity to ask much more questions. But however, one disadvantage with using survey is that you may experience sampling errors. So these are some information here for you to give you a good distinction between what a census is and what a survey is. Further notes are provided for you for your further readings to get more insight into it, into what census and surveys are all about. We move on to a session called sampling. So we have studied so far about population and samples. How do you get your sample? That process of selecting your sample is called sampling. So your population, as we can see in this figure, is the entire group or items under study. Then this process of taking your sample, which is a proportion or a portion of the population, that process or that activity is called sampling. There are many methods of sampling. We have methods that are probabilistic and then methods that are not probabilistic. So we have the probability sampling methods and the non-probability sampling methods. Under the probability sampling methods, we have simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified random sampling. And under non-probability sampling methods, we have convenience sampling, judgmental sampling, snowball sampling, quota sampling. But for the purpose of this course, we will be focusing on the probability sampling methods. So we mentioned that there are 4 types of probability sampling methods. The first one is simple random sampling. Under simple random sampling, every single unit in your sample has a chance of being selected. There are no biases whatsoever against any unit in the sample. So if I'm conducting a study of your class, the evening group of the MLB students, every single person in the class, you may be about 100 students, and I want just 20 students for my study out of you. Every single one of you have a chance of being selected. There should be no bias. I shouldn't be focused on people who are tall. I shouldn't be interested in people who are younger. No, my focus is that anybody could be in my sample. So anybody has a chance of being selected. But if I suddenly get towards, I want people who are tall, then I'm no more doing random sampling. Good. The next form of probability sampling is the class. Let's look at systematic sampling. Yes, systematic sampling. So under systematic sampling, you have your population size or your sample size, okay? So the big N will stand for your population size. In this example, we are using a population size of 100 people. So let's say your class, there are 100 of you in there. And then the sample size, I want just 10 people for my study. So my sample size is 10. The first step is that I'll divide my population by the sample. So I divide my 100 by 10, and that gives me 10. So I define 10 as a variable K, okay? Now I'll select any number at all between 1 and K. In this case, our K is 10. So I want to choose any number at all between 1 and 10, and I chose 2. You could choose 3 or 4. So how do I do the selection now out of this 100 people? Okay, I'm trying to choose 10 people out of these 100 people. Since I chose the number 2 between 1 and 10, I'll start the second person, then the 12th person, then the next 10th person, which will follow the 22nd person, and then the next 10th person, which will follow the 32nd person, all the way to the 92nd person. So at the end of the day, I have 10 students here, but I chose it very orderly. It was systematic. All right. So I may take your register, the class register, and then start from alphabetical order, the second person, the 12th person, the 22nd person. It's a form of probability sampling method, but it's quite of a systematic way of choosing your sample. We have stratified random sampling, and under stratified random sampling, you divide your sample into strata or into different stratums, so different segments, all right? And then in each of these segments, you perform random sampling. So in this example, we are saying that the vice chancellor, there has been a situation in the school, and the vice chancellor wants to know the opinions of students regarding that situation. However, he would want to know what first-year students think, what second-year students think, what third-year students think, and if it's concerning HND students. So instead of just selecting 200 students, better 150 students, instead of selecting 150 students out of the entire ATU students populace, you rather select 50 students out of first years, 50 out of second years, and then 50 out of third years. So this is a form of stratified random sampling where you divide your sample into different strata, and then in each of these strata, you perform random sampling within. Now, finally, we look at cluster sampling. Cluster sampling also divides your sample into some form of categories or some form of groupings. However, unlike stratified sampling, with cluster sampling, you randomly select some of these strata, all right? So if you divide a group, for example, we want to do a study involving patients in hospitals in the whole of Ghana, all right? If you want to take patients if from every single hospital, some patients, let's say 5 patients from every single hospital across Ghana, it's so widespread, it will be very difficult and expensive. So you may rather want to select some hospitals, some hospitals in Ghana, and then for each of these hospitals you have selected, you use all the patients in these hospitals. So if there are 500 hospitals in Ghana, you select about 20 of these hospitals, and then you use every single patient in all these 20 hospitals for your sample. There are some errors we may encounter in the process of sampling. The first, the sampling error, which can arise just because of the selection of a sample. Okay, so for example, with the stratified sampling, the systematic sampling, if you were trying to select the second, then the 12th person, the 22nd person, in your counting, you may make a mistake and select the 23rd person. There's an error as a result of your selection of the sample, all right? We also have non-sampling error, which may arise because there might be an error in your questionnaire, or you may not have asked the question well, and so your respondent didn't understand what you were trying to say, and many more. Now, there can also be a response error where the respondents are unable, or they cannot, or they are not willing to respond to some of the questions that you may ask them. And then we can also have a non-response error where the respondents or the members of your sample will refuse to give you any form of information regarding your study. They will just be unwilling to participate in your study. So to conclude on what we have learned so far, this diagram gives us a very beautiful picture of a population. And then we perform the sampling process to get our sample. And now from our sample, we conduct our study, gather information, make some decisions, and then whatever decision we make, we do our inference onto our population. Thank you for making time. See you the next time.